Thanks. And Secretary Burwell, a couple quick questions here. We got 9 Indian tribes in my home state of South Dakota, and so we've got thousands of American Indians that depend on IHS in my state. My staff works regularly with the Office of Congressional Affairs and previously officials from the Great Plains office. But unfortunately, we're finding it difficult to get timely response to our inquiries. In fact, a recent example that comes to mind is the response I received last week from the IHS to a letter that we mailed 11 months ago. And additionally, my staff was recently prohibited from visiting an IHS facility without clearance, which took weeks to obtain from headquarters, which I believe is another example of just a lack of transparency and responsiveness. So, and I'm wondering if you could speak to why the regional office has been instructed to not engage in even providing basic information to my staff, or why my staff has been unable to visit IHS facilities without prior clearance from headquarters.
Senator, these are both examples that I apologize I don't know about. I will look into them and get back to you. I'm hopeful. I think you know in the budget there are a number of proposals that we have with regard to IHS that are important, and I apologize that I don't know each of your tribes and whether they are that they fall under direct support or not. But there are a number of proposals for the tribes that do receive direct support that I think are extremely important to making sure we provide appropriate care. So I want to look into these issues. I know your leadership on this issue, and I'm hopeful that we can work together, because I think there's some very important things to do with regard to the quality of care and providing that care and not cannibalizing the care that we're providing, 1, and 2, youth. I won't go into that. I know you're familiar with the proposal.
Well, I appreciate it. I just make sure, I want to hear you commit to ensuring that the communication improves and that these inquiries get responded to in a more timely way.
I will follow up on both of those things.
The other thing I wanted to mention with regard to IHS is that what we hear from providers who participate in the IHS Purchase and Referred Care Program is there's a frustration with the time and significant cost it takes to process claims. And so as a result of that, last fall, my staff convened a working group in South Dakota that included IHS, private providers, and tribal representatives to discuss ways that we could improve that claims administration process. As a result of that meeting, we have a commitment from the stakeholders to continue to discuss this issue in follow-up meetings. But one particular area of improvement that it was suggested was to use electronic mechanisms to exchange information in the processes in the claims and payment process. And so in the PRC program, claims are still being mailed in paper form back and forth. And it seems that the focus to move providers and payers to electronic health records should include the IHS and their relationship with private providers. So is that something that you agree with? And I mean, using a paper claim process seems to be very antiquated, inefficient, and ought to be changed. And so would you commit to working with us and with other stakeholders on a way that we can achieve some program efficiencies that might include or incorporate electronic records?
Yes, and would like to hear what you're hearing. When I met with the Secretary's Tribal Advisory Committee about these issues, one of the things that they're raising is, as we push to have electronic medical records in the tribes, the questions of their ability to do that and on what timetable. So we'd welcome the conversation, because I think it will help with the issue you're talking about in terms of our claims processing. They have expressed some concerns, but this is a place where let's see what we can do to move the ball forward, including if it's ways we think about assisting and helping them with moving towards the electronic medical records, because it will help with the other issue.
Okay.
And the other thing is, though, this does also get to predictability and funding, which gets to some of the other issues in the budget in terms of those payment of claims.
Okay. Final point. The world of telehealth, digital medicine, is grown by leaps and bounds in the last few years, but it seems like the regulatory regime that sort of governs that, particularly related to payment and use of telehealth, has not kept pace. And so the question is, what can HHS do to evaluate the current regulatory environment and make changes to catch up and keep up? And we've seen a lot of pioneering work done in my state with the use of telemedicine, but it is very, very hard to deal with all the payment issues and some of the bureaucratic regulatory issues that seem very outdated relative to the technology that I think can be incredibly effective in meeting healthcare needs, particularly in rural areas.
So want to continue to work on these issues, have made some progress, but I think you're right in terms of this is a place where we can continue to make progress. I think one of the ways to do that is make this a part of the conversation on delivery system reform, because it is a way that we can provide greater quality care at more efficient way of doing it. So I think we need to make it part of that. I think the other thing is how we have the conversation with those who are not as supportive of changes in this space in terms of using telehealth as care. So those are the two things. I think having it sit within delivery system reform as a specific place that this kind of effort sits is important. And then the second is how we can work together for those who oppose greater speed with regard to moving it forward.
Okay. All right, my time's up. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Senator Carper.